Bill Browder's testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee, The Atlantic. After Khodorkovsky's conviction, the other oligarchs went to Putin and asked him what they needed to do to avoid sitting in the same cage as Khodorkovsky. Putin's answer was, 50%. Not for the Russian government, but for Vladimir Putin personally. From that moment on, Putin became the biggest oligarch in Russia and the richest man in the world. http Thirton.tc Toothkit inside Iran's mission to dominate the Middle East by BuzzFeed's Borzou Daragi. Iran has enlisted tens of thousands of young Shiite men into an armed network that is challenging the U.S. across the Middle East. The Trump administration is not prepared. http bzfd.it2hxco9 Ustreet continued. Below is Hungary, the EU's first rogue state. Viktor Orban and the Long March from Freedom, by Martin Fletcher in The New Statesman. As a student activist, Orban helped free Hungary from communism. As its prime minister, he practices a liberal democracy and praises Trump and Putin. http bit.ly2bzwn6f What would it take for an American guy to become Danish? By Andrew Richdale in Savers resident Scandophile eats and drinks his way through Copenhagen in search of cultural transformation. http bit.ly2hx2ntvht.longreds.com Why do Republicans want to kill horses? An unpalatable and indefensible initiative that cannot end well, by David Horowitz in Front Page magazine. It's a massive power grab by the beef lobby, which would prefer to cull wild horses and burros so public lands can be devoted to livestock grazing. No one else will rejoice in the heartland at the prospect of being able to chow down on a horse steak or a horse burger. http bit.ly2wjw4e The Greatest Person Then Living, by Andrew Bachovich and the London Review of Books, reviewing the General v. the President MacArthur and Truman at the brink of nuclear war, by H.W. Brands. Though nominally subordinate, MacArthur had become Truman's near equal and aspired to succeed him. The two had never met. Having spent the previous several years presiding over the rehabilitation of occupied Japan, the five-star general was accustomed to exercising quasi-sovereign authority. In moments of reflection, Brands writes, he asked himself if any other great country had ever owed more to one man. He could not think of an instance. He conducted himself accordingly. http bit.ly2fhc15u $15.59 on Amazon. http amzn Dr. 2.1 One Night on the Costa del Sol, a true crime story of rape, murder and wrongful conviction, by Matthew Bremner in The New Statesman. All I could think of was why was I here? How had this happened to me, to an innocent person? http bit.ly2wh2 The Product, by John Lanchester in the London Review of Books. I've spent time thinking about Facebook, and the thing I keep coming back to is that its users don't realize what it is the company does. What Facebook does is watch you, and then use what it knows about you and your behavior to sell ads. I'm not sure there has ever been a more complete disconnect between what a company says it does connect, build communities, and the commercial reality. http bit.ly2v8yeek7ht thebrowser.com I write on Human Skin, Catherine the Great and the Rule of Law, by Robert Zaretsky in the LA Review of Books. Today marks the 250th anniversary of the Legislative Commission convened by the Empress Catherine the Great. Great, incidentally, is a title she humbly refused when it was offered by the Commission, though her humility takes a hit upon learning that she had also instructed the Commission to offer the title. http bit.ly2v6 Zoc Is the World Really Better Than Ever, by Oliver Burkeman in The Guardian. The headlines have never been worse. But an increasingly influential group of thinkers insists that humankind has never had it so good, and only our pessimism is holding us back. http bit.ly2v6qbsjhtl.daily.com The ghostly radio station that no one claims to run, MDZHB, has been broadcasting since 1982. No one knows why, by Zaria Gorvit in the BBC. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the last 3.5 decades, it's been broadcasting a dull, monotonous tone. Every few seconds it's joined by a second sound, like some ghostly ship sounding its foghorn. Then the drone continues. http bbc.into-vbv7vz Venezuela's Unprecedented Collapse, by Ricardo Hausman in Project Syndicate. Venezuela's economic catastrophe dwarfs any in the history of the US, Western Europe, or the rest of Latin America. http bit.ly2v5show Picasso and Tragedy, by T.J. Clarke in the London Review of Books. What marks Guernica off from most other murals of its giant size is the fact that it registers so powerfully as a single scene. It is patched together out of fragments, episodes, spotlit silhouettes. Part of its agony is disconnectedness, the isolation that terror is meant to enforce. But this disconnectedness is drawn together into a unity Guernica does not unwind like a scroll. It is a picture, a distinct shape of space, whose coherence is felt immediately by the viewer for all its strangeness. http bit.ly2v8edcmht thebrowser.com The Rockstar Activist Leading the Resistance, by Daniel Malloy. An Aussie ACLU political director, Faiz Shakir, could lift the Democrats from the lowest point since 1921. With cameos from Adam Gentleson and Matt Cantor. http bit.ly2wgj5 Trump, America's Boy King. Golf in Television Won't Make America Great Again, by Newsweek's Alexander Nazarian. Trump's friends say golf is important to his well-being, just as cycling and rock climbing are de rigueur for the younger titans of Silicon Valley. He is always working, longtime confidant Roger J. Stone Jr. tells me, even while socializing, playing golf or traveling. He is constantly asking questions, taking notes and placing phone calls. A better question would be, does he ever really relax? http bit.ly2v8 Job Will Texas Immigration Crackdown Spark the Latino Uprising Democrats Have Been Waiting For, by Mother Jones. Tim Murphy. http bit.ly2utv